Welcome back. All right, today's chapter starts with a simple high school side hustle, but quickly grows into something much bigger. By the end, it leads to a school assembly coming to a complete stop. Let's see how it all happened. Imagine you're in a packed school auditorium during a cultural celebration. Music is playing, everyone is cheering and dancing, and the energy is high. Then the DJ grabs the microphone, the crowd joins in a chant, and suddenly everything comes to a stop. So, how did a fun school event end in complete silence? To answer that, we have to go back to where it all began. Surprisingly, the story starts with a simple high school side business selling copied CDs. The story begins in ninth grade. The narrator, who has a natural talent for business, notices an opportunity with two classmates, Bolo and Andrew. They already have a small side business selling copied video games and music CDs, and he quickly sees the potential to help it grow. Andrew and Bolo had one big problem. Some students bought their CDs and games but never paid, and they were too nervous to ask for the money. The narrator came up with a simple solution. Since he already knew many students from running the school tuck shop, he offered to handle the sales, collect the payments, and earn a share of the profits. It was a deal that worked for everyone. But this partnership was only the beginning. Soon, the business got a huge upgrade, all because of one new piece of technology that completely changed the way they worked. When Andrew, the group's technology expert, graduated, he gave the narrator his CD writer. At the time, this was an incredible piece of equipment that could copy music onto blank CDs. With that one machine, the narrator could now handle the entire business himself, from making the CDs to selling and delivering them. He quickly turned it into a well-organized business. He spent hours downloading music over a slow internet connection, copied it onto CDs, and sold them for much less than stores charged. Instead of spending the money he earned, he kept reinvesting it. He upgraded from one CD writer to several, allowing him to produce many more CDs and grow the business even faster. By his final year of high school, the business was earning about 500 Rand each week. For a teenager still living at home with very few expenses, it felt like a lot of money. His small side project had become a real success. So what do you do when you're a teenager with your own money? For him, the answer was simple. He went to the new McDonald's, ordered a large meal, and enjoyed it. To him, that meal was a reward for all his hard work and a sign that his business had succeeded. Selling CDs was only the beginning. Then his friend Bangani came up with a new idea that would take the business beyond the school hallways and out into the community. It also gave the narrator a new role, not just as a seller, but as a DJ. One day, Bangani saw him mixing music on his computer and had an idea. He told him to stop practicing at home and start DJing at real parties. Their neighborhood, Alexandra, was well known for its lively parties, making it the perfect place for him to get started. They decided to give it a try. For a New Year's Eve party, they carried a desktop computer, a large monitor, and speakers out into the street to play music. The party was a huge success. He DJ'd until sunrise, and the event became well known throughout Alexandra. Almost overnight, they had built a strong reputation as DJs. The DJ events were a big success, but they soon ran into a new problem. Whenever he played a brand new song, the crowd didn't know the dance moves, so people hesitated to join in. They realized they needed a way to teach everyone the new dances and get the crowd excited. Once again, Bangani came up with a creative solution. They formed a dance crew to perform the new dance moves and encourage everyone else to join in. The group's most talented and eye-catching dancer was Bangani's neighbor, a young man whose nickname was Hitler. Before we go any further, there's one important detail to understand. The dancer's nickname was Hitler. Today, that name is strongly connected to one of history's most harmful leaders. But in his community at that time, many people did not know that history, during and after apartheid, Some Black South Africans were given or adopted European names, sometimes chosen without knowing their historical meaning. As a result, it was not unusual to meet people with names taken from famous figures in history. For this dancer and the people around him, Hitler was simply a nickname. They did not connect it to the historical figure. That difference in understanding is what makes the rest of the story possible. With Hitler leading the dance crew, the group quickly became very popular. They started performing at more parties and events, even outside their own neighborhood. Then they received an invitation to perform at one special event, one that would change everything. The group was invited to perform at a cultural celebration at King David's School, a local Jewish school. They were introduced as hip-hop peninsula dancers, and the goal was to share their music and dance as part of South Africa's growing spirit of cultural exchange after apartheid. About 10 minutes into their performance, the crowd was loving it. Students, parents, and teachers were all dancing together, and the energy in the room was incredible. As the show reached its finale, the narrator picked up the microphone to introduce the group's star dancer. Then, over the cheering crowd, he shouted the dancer's name. The rest of the dance crew immediately joined in, cheering their teammate's nickname and pumping their fists. But then they noticed something was wrong. The music had stopped, and the entire room, filled with Jewish students, parents, and teachers, was frozen in stunned silence. A teacher rushed onto the stage and unplugged the sound system, bringing the performance to an immediate stop. She was extremely upset and began demanding an explanation. But the surprising part was that the narrator and his crew were completely confused. They had no idea why the performance had been stopped or what had caused such a strong reaction. This was the moment when two completely different perspectives collided. The teacher heard the name of the man responsible for the Holocaust being celebrated at her school. The narrator, however, thought she was upset because of one of the dance moves. When the teacher said, "My people stopped people like you before," she was referring to the Nazis. But the narrator understood it as a threat toward him because he was Black. Neither side understood what the other meant, creating a complete misunderstanding. Still, having no idea why everyone was upset, the group packed up their equipment and left. Believing they had been treated unfairly, they walked out together, cheering for their teammate as they went. From their point of view, they thought they had stood up to someone who was judging them unfairly, and their lead dancer had become a hero. They had no idea that the entire situation was caused by a misunderstanding. It's an unforgettable story, and at its heart, it's about how easily people can misunderstand each other when they come from different backgrounds and experiences. It reminds us that understanding someone else's perspective can be just as important as sharing our own. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you in the next episode.
If you'd like more personalized feedback, writing support, and discussion sessions, they're available with me or with our selected tutors. All the details are here.